Welcome to Leaving Nothing to Chance, your go-to podcast where we bring you insights from some of the most influential voices in small business and personal development. Each week, we dive deep into conversations with top thought leaders, authors, and business moguls from around the world, sharing their secrets to success and strategies for growth. Tune in for exclusive content that will inspire, motivate, and equip you to take your journey to the next level. This is Leaving Nothing to Chance.
Well, Mr. Joe Poduslenko, all the way from beautiful Philadelphia, PA. How are you, Joe?
John, I'm great, man. Thank you for having me for the platform. Usually just recently I've been on the other side of these, so it'd be cool to get interviewed for one. Yeah, thanks for having me on, man.
You got such a great background as an athlete, as somebody who understands finance, as somebody with their own podcast, as somebody who's making a lot of noise in social media. And of course, I'd be remiss, Joe, if I didn't say you and I graduated from the same great institution of Seton Hall University. Now, we weren't in the same class, as you can probably tell. Joe and I are a little bit different in age. I was class of 83. You were
2017.
2017.
So
That really makes me feel really bad.
it's just a couple years. Yeah.
On the other hand, it means those donations I've been given are paying off, though, because you're doing a great job with your life. I just got my donation card the other day, by the way. You're probably getting them too. They're almost building something up there in South Orange.
They're starting to come in. My checks probably aren't as big as the ones you might be sending at this point, but hopefully we get there at some point. Yeah.
That's a great skill. Because Joe, let's just start there, because your podcast is called the Post Game Podcast, and you were a Division I college baseball player. And talk a little bit about your athletic experience and kind of what that taught you as you went from being a student athlete to becoming a business person.
Definitely, yeah. So I played baseball at Seton Hall. So I'm originally from the Philadelphia area, as you said. So went up to Seton Hall and played 4 years of ball up there. Went there as an infielder pretty much. So I was a shortstop in high school and was really good in high school, right? You're the best. Everybody that goes to play Division I sports is often separates themselves in high school. And then I got to Seton Hall and it was a bit of a wake up call, I'd say, because it's like, hey, everybody from their high school is the best athlete, best baseball player. So it really raises your level, I think, just of being in the room with a lot of guys that are driven and hold themselves to that high standard. So yeah, I got to Seton Hall, and just baseball was a huge part of my life. So I ended up playing 4 years there, had an awesome experience. Some of my best friends, I'm sure same for you, are from Seton Hall, guys that'll be at my wedding. And yeah, I guess what's funny about that, not to drag this on, is that I love the game of baseball and still do to this day. But by the end of my career at Seton Hall, I didn't love it as much as when I maybe got there, right? I was starting to think about different careers that I can go into, different internships, and still didn't really know what I wanted to do after school. Really just ended up getting a job through a former teammate of mine's dad who had a relationship up there in Jersey. And it was just getting the first job and getting my foot into the business world. But I wouldn't say I gave it a ton of thought of what I wanted to do after sports. So that's the origin of the podcast, which I'm sure we'll get into. But yeah, that's a quick background on the baseball and Seton Hall a bit.
Let's talk a little bit about your show. So the Post Game Podcast, where does the name originate? And tell us about, I've listened to the show, but we certainly want our listeners to listen to your show. It's a great show. It's how we found each other, I think. And we didn't know we were both Seton Hall grads till the first time we had a chance to talk. And there's not that many of us, especially as you get down here like Texas and California and places. It's like, if you went to Seton Hall, you're an anomaly. Up in the Northeast, there's a lot of Seton Hall grads. But tell everybody about the show, where they can find it, and really what the context of it normally is.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think up in the Northeast, you see a little bit more of the Seton Hall bumper stickers. Not much in PA, but more in North Jersey. So the post game podcast, how it originates. So just to give you a quick synopsis, I started working in the insurance industry. Wanted to get back to Philly. So I was probably 23 years old. Wanted to get back to Philly and had an opportunity to interview with where I am now at Lincoln Financial. So in the insurance retirement industry. And I was rearing to go. Like I said, by the time my baseball career was ended, had a few opportunities maybe to play independent ball, but didn't, I was ready to turn the page and start working. Started working, was ready to go, raising my hand for all these extracurricular types of activities, and was building a lot of great connections. And I think what might have happened, and just talking through this is good, is that COVID changed things for a lot of people. So I went through a nice Lincoln Financial has a great training program. I went through this training program with Lincoln to get out of the field and sell. And COVID hit, you're home, you're working from home, things change. And I just kind of started thinking a little bit more of what I wanted to do, right? The path that I had gotten on. And just as I was having more conversations, a few of my buddies, again, because of COVID, were playing professional baseball. That got cut short involuntarily for them. And just having some more of these conversations with guys that were in the locker room, were high, quote unquote, high performing guys in college, just was finding that it's tough to dedicate that much of your life to one thing and then turn the page within, oftentimes it's hopefully you have, not many guys get to do it on their own terms. I think many times it's given to you, or the cleats are hung up for you almost, or an injury happens to you and it's not voluntary. So just that transition period was interesting to me because it was something that I was experiencing, kind of thinking about the path that I wanted to go on, and guys that I was around, just, hey, how you doing, man? Are you good with where you're at in your career? That type of thing. So 73 episodes later, still having some of these conversations with primarily athletes, had a few military vets on about, hey, what can you do to put yourself in the best spot to transition out of that time period in your life to a corporate setting, or in your case, entrepreneurship. So yeah, that's the origin.
It's funny, it raises another question. And the question is, like, years ago, I met Dr. Dennis Waitley. And I think Dennis just passed away, if I'm not mistaken, a couple months ago. Very smart guy, multiple degrees. And part of his lecture that day was about the fact that he was working with astronauts. And he used a great analogy. He said, the guy comes back home, goes through what they do, they detoxify them, make sure they don't bring back any space illness. And he said, I love your response and thoughts on this because it's along the lines of what you're doing with interviewing these people. He basically said, and I'm paraphrasing, folks, so I apologize if I don't have this exact, but he basically said, you come home, you go through all that, you go back to your house, your wife says, all right, now, hey, Bob, take the garbage out. And you go outside with the garbage and you look up and go, I was up there 2 weeks ago, and now my wife's telling me to take the garbage out. But here's where the problem lies, male or female, this doesn't matter the origin or the sex of the person. When you're a super achiever and something happens in your life and it ends, sports is the perfect scenario, but it's not just sports. Businesses end, marriages end, relationships end, friendships end, things end. How do you pick up the pieces? And this was what was Dr. Waitley's point, was he would work with these guys to make sure that they found that next thing, whether it was running an airline, whether it was becoming a pilot, whether it was business, whether it was something else, that they would go, okay, great. I was focused on going to the moon. Now I'm focused on whatever that happens to be. Are you helping with your podcast to drill down, not only with your guests, but with your audience that says, yeah, something ended in my life. Now I need that next thing to be passionate about, because without passion, we perish, right? As human beings, we give up. We kind of say, what the heck is next? What do I do next? And if I don't find that thing, and sometimes you don't find it immediate either, but how are you helping people to make that transition? And what are you learning from some of your guests where they've made that transition themselves?
It's a great question. And I just, the first thing that comes to mind is that the people that are reaching out to from the cold outreach, it's sales, right? You're convincing somebody to come on to spend 45 to 60 minutes with you. But anyway, I'll digress here. What I think is that I like to interview these people that are super passionate, or at least seem to be, at least on social media, about what they're doing. And it almost, whether you're interested in the NIL space or finance or whatever it is, it's like these people have found this thing that they're super passionate about. And regardless of the area or industry that it's in, I think, to your point, it's tough, by the way, it's tough to compare playing baseball at Seton Hall to being an astronaut, but there's the parallels, right? Between hey, I'm a financial advisor. And I've also found that there's been a big driving force behind what a lot of these people are doing. So just a quick story that this guy, Rashad Campbell, who is big time in the NIL space right now, he's passionate about financial literacy in NIL. That stems from growing up with 10, I think it was 10 brothers and sisters,
Wow.
and having to almost help them with finance along the way. So just finding these people that play the sport, and it's almost more interesting when there is that time period, 4 or 5 years, whatever it might be, that they were basically saying to themselves, I don't know if I'm ever going to get out of this rut type of thing or figure it out. And then have gone on to whether it's founding a company or helping other athletes transition into that time period, have really found this purpose. And you can tell, right? You can tell when you're talking to somebody that really cares about what they're doing. And that's what's been interesting to me is, hey, sure, you can find that in whatever industry, but when you get a purpose behind what you're doing, which is, trust me, I'm still in the middle of it with this podcast and it's still pretty early, but if you have a reason behind what you're doing, then you're going to be hard to beat. And if you keep doing it and showing up with consistency, yeah. So you can hear it in somebody, you can hear it in their voice when you're interviewing them, and they just have so much of this knowledge and everything. So I don't know if I just answered your question, but
You did.
yeah.
You see so much success. You think Shaquille O'Neal, for example, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, Peyton Manning, all guys that are great athletes, super successful business guys, right? But for every one of those, and we could name 100 more if we sat here for a couple hours and named them all, right? And here in Dallas, for example, Troy Aikman, Emmett Smith, both huge names, both car dealers, restaurants, cell phone companies. They've done extremely well. They've used their name well. They've used their brains, frankly. I know what John Elway has, okay, for example, okay. But there's an equal amount or more former athletes that you meet them and you go, what are you doing now? And you're like, it's like a blank stare. I'm not doing anything. Let's talk about what I did in 1997. But that's not relevant. It's great. And it's great to reminisce as a fan. You say, hey, I remember so much and such. And by the way, I know some Olympians that are in that category that it's, oh, hey, you were great at what you did. But then something happens after. And I think that the real point, Joe, that you're making and you're helping people to see is there's life after your first success, be that in athletics or be that in something else that you need to transition and use those skills. Because, yeah, and you know this as a D1 athlete, you got all kinds of disciplines that the other students sitting at Seton Hall, frankly, probably didn't. Okay, just because you had to go to practice after school, you had to show up and do something else besides get in your car and go home and drink beer on the weekend with the boys. It's no, I can't do that. I got a game. You might have done it after, but you know what I'm saying. So, how do they use those disciplines that they've gained, be it as an athlete, be it as an entertainer, be it as an astronaut? I don't think we have any astronauts listening, but we might. Maybe there might be one or two out there. If they are, welcome astronauts.
I hope.
We love NASA.
From
But
space. Maybe they're listening
yeah,
from space.
exactly. Who knows? Between Musk and Bezos, those guys are going to Mars. So who knows? But I don't think those guys are listening either. But to that point, Joe, in a real serious way. So that how do you use that discipline that you gained as an athlete? And some of the folks you're interviewing have gained as D1 athletes, professional athletes, Olympic level athletes, where they've gained all that discipline, all that hard work that they did starting out as 8 or 9 years old and being in baseball or being in whatever other sport. How do they use that stuff so they have a life of success when they look back and they get to be an old man like I am, and they look back and they go, hey, I got this body of work. I don't have what I did when I was 22. I have what I did when I was 22, 32, 42, etc.
So I think you just said it. I think it's, and this is something that I'm still going through. I think at this point I'm on that tail end of it, hopefully past it. But you see the guys that are in their 30s, hopefully not later than that, that still live that life of I was the star high school athlete or the star college athlete. And it's the identity. So I think that's probably the root of a lot of what I'm trying to get to is your identity is wrapped up in being that athlete. And for me, even when I wasn't, I think I hit 250 in college. I had years when I hit 240, that all that stuff. Even when I wasn't hitting home runs and everything like that, my identity was still as a baseball player. So I think regardless of how you perform or if you get to the minor leagues, big leagues, you almost have to, and this is not easy to do, just internalize it and appreciate it, and then almost start going, experimenting, talking to different people of, hey, I heard you saying this in an interview you were in of finding a mentor of maybe in a area that you're passionate about and exploring. So it's almost closing the page or closing the book, so to speak, and being like, all right, I got up at 5:30 in the morning, probably earlier than that, to go to morning lift when I didn't want to. I still showed up. I still went to class after the morning lift when I didn't want to. You do all these things that just showing that's what you find is and in the corporate world what I've found, and I'm not the CEO of the company, anything like that, but you know the people that show up and you know the people that are going to respond to your email or Slack message, whatever it is. All that came from showing up to these things that you really didn't want to do. So then it's closing that book and then start having these conversations and explore what you're interested in, almost, and do it when I'm 30. Say do it when you're younger, because I'm 30 now and I was doing it, but now it's more in a formal type of capacity with the podcast. But I'm getting married. We have a house. We're starting to, no kids yet, but we're starting to get some of these responsibilities. And it's a little bit tougher to do it than if I was 22, 23. Now, if I did it then, I probably wouldn't have. I've gained different experience maybe to this point, and I've a long way to go. But yeah, I kind of just went on a tangent. But I think it's, yeah, that identity, and then start learning from different people.
Yeah, no, and you're right, because the mentorship is so important, and to see somebody maybe a few years older that has been successful in that whatever that next walk of life was for them, I think can influence people to say, hey, okay, I'm not going to be a ball player forever. So some of the salaries these guys are making now, I was looking at some of the NBA salaries yesterday, 200 million, 150 million. Well, after taxes and agent fees and everything else, still a lot of money. If they put that away even at 5 or 6%, they should be able to live the rest of their lives. But that's still, what are we, 1/100th of people who ever put on a pair of sneakers and play a sport. So it's, I think, to do that next thing, but apply the disciplines that you learned as an athlete, I think is so important. But along those lines, then we'll move on to the next question, because I get compelled on this stuff with sports. I love sports, but I went through this with my own son, but I'm interested in your experiences on this. How do you tell a young athlete, 16, 17-year-old kid who thinks they're going to play in the NHL or the NBA or MLB or whatever their particular sport is, and they got that dream and they're doing all that hard work? But how do you tell them, hey, you tear up your knee tomorrow, kid, you better pay attention in the classroom? How do you get them to realize that there is life after whatever that happens to be that does or doesn't turn out for them?
Huh, thanks. But not being a father or anything myself, I coached a little bit, but that's tough, right? Getting that through to a 16 or 17-year-old. I don't think I was I remember my dad telling me that because I was focused on baseball, man. I worked really hard in high school, and he would say to me, he'd say, you still got to do well in school. You have to think about some of these other things because one day it's going to end. And as a 16 or 17-year-old, it goes in one ear, out the other, especially coming from a parent, maybe. But it's the truth, man, because I think it's the double-edged sword, right? Because you want to instill, hopefully one day I can do this with my daughter and son, our son, is let them dream, right? Let them instill as much confidence as possible, because if you don't if you don't have any confidence, then forget the rest of it. But let them dream almost, but just plant some of these little nuggets of, hey, it's gonna come to an end at some point. So maybe you got to take these other things seriously, and especially in the classroom, just start to get curious about other things. Yeah, it's a great question, and quite frankly, I don't know that I have a great answer to it, because especially in this new era, there's going to be a new generation, I should say. There's going to be a lot of different ways you can get pulled as a kid on social media, but just know that it will come to an end at some point. Yeah, it's tough. It is a really tough conversation, but just statistically speaking, like you said, if you want to play in the NBA and you're not 6'7", 6'8", it's possible your odds are going to be a lot lower, a lot less as a 5'10" guy. But yeah, it's tough. It's a tough question.
It is. And I know there's no answer to it, but and I think, and I think digressing a little bit, I think that it's in all walks of life. It's, hey, we all had dreams at certain ages that transition. When I graduated from the hall, I thought I was going to be a sports writer. Then I found out they make like 12 grand a year in 1983. And it was like, wow, sales sounded almost so much better. But I had planned on a certain type of life, and a lot of people do. And then all of a sudden you make that transition and you live with it, and then you apply all the skills you got from other things. So let's go to the next thing. Let's talk about planning for the future, because you're now in the financial world. You're working with a great company there in Philadelphia, Lincoln Financial. And how should our listeners get to that point? Okay. Whether they were an athlete or not, whether an entertainer or not, whether they were just a normal guy, normal gal, how do they focus on that? Because you see what I see. We talked about this off camera, right? We've got friends that are 80 years old that are still working, and not because they want to work, but because they have to. And there's a tragedy in that. In America, that should not be the case, right? You should have saved some money. And then we see people 55 years old able to walk away from whatever and have enough money to live a nice life. Maybe they're not living a high life, but they're living a nice life. They're doing what they want to do, to spend time with their loved ones, right? Which is more important, frankly, than the other stuff. Because when you die, those are the memories that matter, not how much money you have in the bank. So how should people start to think about their financial future and how to set it up so they don't get to that rainy day and go, wow, it's raining and there's nothing in the bank, or no food on the table, even worse?
No, definitely. It's been interesting to see that because we work with retirement plans, and occasionally I'll go out and help educate some of these, they call them participants in a 401k plan, employees. And you'll go to talk about some of this stuff that it's, I don't want to say it's sad to see, but it's just really interesting to see that you'll go to a manufacturing plant or something along those lines, and there will be folks that have no idea about even just saving, say, 2% of a paycheck in a 401k plan. And you almost take it for granted, right? I grew up fortunate. My dad worked really hard to put our family in a really good position. So I think seeing some of that example that he set, but it's tough when, especially there's people that come from different backgrounds that maybe don't grow up in that and have to really take drastic measures to get to that point where they can save. But it's something that we say, it's something that I say at Lincoln. It's even if you can just start with a little bit, the earlier the better, because and I'm not a financial advisor, but compound interest, the earlier you start and the more time your money is in the markets, it's the more time it has to grow and compound on itself. So I think really just, and I'm trying to do this myself. I talk about it, but I probably need to do a better job even of just saving a little bit more and not going out of my way to maybe $20 here and there. I make a pit stop at Wawa up here in the Northeast, but doing your best to just save a little bit more in that rainy day fund. Yeah, it's because you want to, myself, I want to get to the point where I want to work optionally when I'm hopefully 70 years old or 75. My dad is 64, going on 65, and he's still working, probably because he still has to pay off. There's a few things that he has to pay for, us, my sisters included, but I think he enjoys what he does. He enjoys what he does. So I want to get to that point, yeah, where it's optional. So yeah, the earlier you can start, definitely the better.
And that goes back to that discipline that we're talking about from athletics, right? If somebody says, hey, you know what, I'm going to put, to your point, the earlier you start, the better. Even $100 a month in their 401k or their SEP if they're self-employed, right? It's not easy to do. To your point, right? It's easier to go, well, I'm going to Wawa and buy something I probably shouldn't need anyway, but I want it anyway, so I'm going to have it, or buy lottery tickets, or buy, if you got bad habits, cigarettes, alcohol, all sorts of other things that you really don't need. But everybody's got their stuff, their indulgences, myself included. Right? I don't want to be hypocritical, I waste money too. But that discipline is so important. How do people get that, where they go, do they just break that first check or tell their employer, hey, take the 2%, or I'd like, where they don't even see it? Because you're doing group plans for the most part, right? With Lincoln Financial, you're working on the admin side.
Correct. Yes. Small businesses. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So you're dealing, okay, well, perfect example. So you're dealing with a lot of people who are listeners to our show. they are insurance agents, so they should know this information. Doesn't mean they do it either, by the way. It's like the dentist kids who have bad teeth sometimes, or the shoemakers
Yeah.
who, how come your kid has a hole in his shoe? Because I'm fixing everybody else's.
Yep.
So sometimes the
Yep.
insurance agents are the worst, right? But we got realtors, network marketers, a lot of network marketers, a lot of people in a lot of different walks of life. But most of them, they'd qualify for the kind of groups you're working with. How do you get that across to them? That couple of percent that they're not even going to see because it's going to come maybe from direct deposit from their employer or payroll deduction or whatever is being deducted. How do they get that where you're not even going to miss that money, John? How do you get that through to them?
How do you get it through, man? It's a great question. How do you get it through to somebody that, hey, it's better that if you're able to put this in an account that can grow, you're speaking to hypotheticals, right? There's something that's out there that that you're telling them, but you can't see that. It's not tangible. It's not right in front of your face. So, yeah, really, I think just encouraging that, hey, you're never gonna miss this because you're never gonna have it. It's going into an account that is going to be growing for you and working for you. I'll use my fiance, honestly, as an example. She's passionate about what she does. She works in the fashion industry, and I work in 401k. So I said, hey, let's just set up your 401k plan. We'll put in 5%, 6%, and I'll pull it up. I try not to pull it up too often, but I'll pull it up every once a month or once a quarter or so. And I'll tell her, I'll just say, hey, this is what you have in there. She's like, really? Do I? That's awesome. Because in her mind, there's maybe her checking account, these other accounts, but so it's almost like you don't think about it until you're able to check it every quarter or in a year, and you're like, wow, just because I was taking, and it goes back to what you said, the discipline and just a tiny step each day. You can't see that compounding right in front of you, but in 3 years, in 5 years, just doing that one little thing, and that can go with money or anything, you'd be amazed at what that can add up to, I think. So, yeah, yeah.
So let's talk about something else because something that you and I are both working with, and probably all our listeners are working with to some degree or another. AI. How are you using AI with your podcast? How are you using it with your regular business? How are you using it in your life? What applications are you using it for?
Man, so this is one that I think it's. I was just thinking about it this morning because yeah, a few of the guys that I work with are just starting to super successful sales guys at Fortune 500 companies, but they don't know much about AI. They don't know much about. I just recently brought up ChatGPT, and they were amazed at even just putting notes into this notes that you handwrite from a meeting and type it into ChatGPT and say, hey, can you summarize this for me? Give me the next best steps. They were amazed at what it spit out for them. So it's remarkable not to use it as a crutch, but I use it every single day. I use it with the podcast, the platform that I use, Riverside, which are you familiar with Riverside at all?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I use Riverside and you record the conversation. It uploads in 5 minutes. You click a button, magic clip, and then it clips out 8 to 10 clips AI generated of the best talking points of what they interpret from the episode. That's one thing. I'm on YouTube posting some of these episodes. I'll say, hey, based on this caption and in my tone of voice, what would be an interesting eye-catching title to this?
Hmm.
How can I optimize these timestamps for the podcast based on my potential? So just things like that. And then even we're talking about money. How can I create a better budget for myself? I want to set aside this much for our wedding next year. Really, it's such an amazing tool to use. So like I said, I don't think you can use it as a crutch and say, give me the answers to my life, give me the answers to my life, basically. But if you can put the right things into that and use it to your advantage, it's amazing. I was just talking to a kid the other day who basically helps college athletes who have a following monetize that following. So they have 100,000 followers. He's like, hey, how can we monetize that based on the eyeball? He said that at the end of August, so by the end of next month, 50% of his business will be AI, will be automated. Will
Yeah.
be everything will be AI. So from responses to inbounds to answering things on social media. So I just think we're very fortunate. If you can think of it as not a threat, but man, there's so much opportunity here. If you want to learn about this stuff, it's crazy. It's great. And I just using it every day, I think I probably know a sliver of it, but man, if you can use this stuff to your advantage, it's going to be amazing.
It's a game changer. It definitely, I'm blown away by it. Every day I get more fascinated with what it can do and how much time it can save me. Because I'd be interested in your answer on this, Joe. So I use it, for example, I do a lot of writing, a lot of emails to other podcasters. Yeah, I think I reached out to you that way with an email. I use it for that. I use it to write some of the emails. I use it sometimes if I'm preparing a speech with doctors. Okay. I work with a lot of doctors on a lot of different topics. And sometimes I don't know anything about blue-green algae. Tell me about what I can put it in AI. And it's okay. I can't read all this, but give me the synopsis, for example. I'm just picking that out of thin air, by the way, et cetera, et cetera. And all of a sudden it's, oh, okay, great. At least I've got some talking points. At least I don't sound like an idiot. I don't go, oh, what do you, what do you sell? What do you do? It's such a great reference point is what I'm finding with it. It's like the public library on steroids. But at your
Yeah.
fingertips versus I got to search for it. I just tell them what I want and it gives it to me. So it's amazing. But to that point, how are you using it in your financial service life? Are you using it to prepare, like you're going to see a potential client that's got a car dealership? Are you going, hey, how have other car dealers used a 401k plan with Lincoln or with other companies? Are you using it that way? If you are, how?
Good. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good question too. I'm using it so I'm in on the sales side for prospecting ideas, more so ideas. How can I give me an email sequence with 3 to 4 outreaches? If I don't get them on the first one, how can I change that up a little bit on the second one? The outreach itself. So, can you give me a schedule on should I start with a call? Should I start with an email? If I don't get them with an email, I give them with another call. What's the cadence of that? So, that, and then it's a great point by you is I don't know as much about this nonprofit. I don't know much about this type of industry. How can I educate myself with 3 to 4 bullet points of how I can at least sound dangerous in a meeting and not sound like a total idiot? So using it a lot for that. And I think so, not to get too deep specifically into what I do, but sales, it's a lot of the outreach, right? It's a lot of staying in front of people, building the trust, but you also have to have a little bit of that technical expertise as well. So we deal with a lot of fee disclosures of 401k plans, breaking down all this jargon. It's the one thing that in the financial industry, it's can't you simplify a lot of this stuff? It's hard enough to understand it as it is. There's all these acronyms and everything, but these fee disclosures are 100 pages long. And if we could get to the point where we can just say, hey, let's punch this in, give me 5 bullet points of how this plan can be improved, where we can save money, et cetera, then and this is another conversation, that there's jobs that will probably be jeopardized at that. So that's what I think. If you can mix some of the soft skills with the technical expertise of AI, you're going to be that much further ahead. But yeah, so there's just so many different ways, specifically in the financial industry, not specifically in the financial industry, but with my job that I'm using it, yeah, from prospecting to marketing ideas, that type of thing. Yeah.
It's great, great. So let's talk a little bit about your podcast, just so everybody knows where to find it and where to find you. If somebody has a small business and they say, "Hey, Lincoln's a great company, by the way. I've been a Lincoln policyholder for a number of years, and I've been dabbled in the insurance industry, so I know your company's a great company." But if they want to find out about the podcast, what are all the different platforms that you're on with it?
Yeah, John. Yeah. First, thanks, man. This is great. You're good at what you do, just asking these questions, and I'm learning from you as well. So I appreciate you reaching out to me. I This is one thing I'm working on, man. I'm trying to stay as consistent as possible on YouTube. I started recently on TikTok, which I didn't know anything about, but I started posting on TikTok, on Twitter, but it's primarily YouTube, Spotify, and that's something. And maybe I could even toss this back to you: is you got to first maybe identify who your audience is, but then find out where are they. If you're posting on Apple Podcasts, but you're trying to target 16 to 22-year-old, whatever it is, you might not be the best spot for maybe TikTok or YouTube or some of these shorts. So I'm trying to post it everywhere, not as much on LinkedIn, but that's going to be something that's coming because I think LinkedIn is a great opportunity. And I didn't want to intertwine really the professional with the podcast, but I'm really thinking that hey, there's a lot of overlap, man. There's a lot of overlap between what I'm doing with the podcast. So being a little bit more vulnerable and put myself out there. But that's where it is for now. It's YouTube. I'm trying to post as many shorts, keep them, add value with them, not just throw things out there just to keep the volume, but actually have them be valuable. And then I think that could attract the longer form podcast because it's an hour of your time sometimes that you're dedicating to listening. And it's a big commitment, man. People don't have that time. So how can you give them what you're trying to get across concisely, but have it be valuable so that people can trust you at the same time? So that's what I'm thinking about.
How I've seen it, Joe, is I see it as the new media. And maybe it's not so new now because it's been out there for a few years, but I just see it. And I was interviewing a young guy, you're a guy your age yesterday down in Atlanta, who actually works with ClickFunnels. His brother-in-law is one of the founders of the great ClickFunnel company, Russell Brunson. Anyway, I was talking to him about this, and I said, how I see it, if we go back to this last election, and not to get political, because this is not a political statement, folks. Okay, you love Trump, hate Trump, love Kamala, hate Kamala, it's relevant. But you had two people running. You had one who had a 20, I don't know what Barron is, 20-year-old son say, Dad, you're MSNBC, CNN, and Fox, you're only going to reach a certain, to your point, you're only going to reach a certain type of voter. Guys my age vote, but they don't listen to those channels. And by the way, the more I watch those channels, the more I get where I don't listen to them. But that's a different story. We know a whole podcast on that, how bad the media is. But this has become the new media. Trump got on over 100 shows like yours and mine and just talked to people. And Joe Rogan helped. There's millions of people. But at the end of the day, he got on some smaller shows. Kamala only chose to get on 4. So I think as we get into this next election cycle, God forbid, it's like we just ended one. But at the end of the day, when we get into the next one, I think we're going to see candidates reaching out to podcasters left and center and saying, hey, I want to talk to your 1,000 listeners or 500 or 2,000, whatever the number is. Because the other thing about podcasting, and I love your thoughts on this is evergreen content. What you and I are doing today, I'll post it sometime in August and people will see it. But they're going to see it then when it comes up and I put it on all these different platforms and send it out. But that doesn't mean in 6 months somebody won't go, hey, let me listen to the show Joe and John did. A year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now. Like I got shows that are 5 years old, believe it or not, that people still listen to sometimes because I don't know where it comes from, but it sends me a thing. But I love your thoughts on the evergreen aspect of podcasting, that really these things live forever and why they're so valuable as a result.
It's interesting. It's an interesting comment because it's funny because I started this because I was in a place where I was curious. I just wanted to say I was working from home, right? And I wanted to network and meet different people. It's 2023. And I had these people that I wanted to reach out to. And so, you know what? I had a buddy that I saw that started a podcast. And I just thought, I'll start recording these conversations. Why not? But then it got really interesting. I just really enjoyed it. And now you see the podcasts are so oversaturated and there's so many of them and most of them stop after. It's awesome that you've been doing it for 5 years. Most of them stop. But I think so. You mentioned the Trump thing, but Theo Vaughn is a guy that I follow,
Yeah, okay.
comedian, dude's hilarious, and he's all across. He's got the serious stuff, he's got the comedy, but then he gets guys on like that, and you almost just you build the trust with people because they know you're not trying to blow. There's no agenda. Maybe that's partly why you can build the trust. There's no agenda of, hey, you need to do this, do that. This is just two people really having the conversation. But in terms of the evergreen content and finding it, I don't really know the answer to that yet because I'm 73, 74 in. So I'm not exactly sure who's going back and finding what I started posting October 2023. But I think hopefully as I continue to grow with it and continue to stay consistent, people might say, hey, this guy's up to 150 episodes. How did he get to this point? I wonder who's this guy that was on his episode? Who's John who was on episode 52, 53, whatever it is. So yeah, I think it's an awesome medium, man. And it is getting a little bit, It's being willing to get vulnerable and share. But again, I started because I was listening to all these types of podcasts. I'm sure you were doing the same thing, and you listen to them, and there's a reason why you're curious about listening, because you want to get better. Not to get in the whole that part of it, but it's just a great medium, man. And my last point on this is that who people's going back to the people's time, or people's time is valuable. Who can you really reach out to and say, hey, can you give me 15 minutes, 30, 45 minutes of your time? Because I want to get to know you, pick your brain type of thing. But if you say, hey, I'm super curious, I have this podcast about X, for me, it's the former athlete thing, business, and say, hey, I'd love to learn from you. I'd love to have you on there, and I'd appreciate 45 minutes of your time. It's tough to do that without that platform, just to be quite frank, unless you have some kind of in or connection type of thing. So yeah, it's really open. It opens doors, man. It's opened doors for me, and it's been very cool. It's been very cool.
I haven't met a podcaster yet that I've either interviewed or been interviewed by that I haven't liked. Somebody who, if you were in Dallas, I'd say, Joe, go get your future wife. I'll get my wife. Let's go have dinner. Let's talk sports. Let's talk politics. Let's talk business. Let's talk life. And I have not met a podcaster yet. And I'm up over 250 shows now. I haven't met one yet that I haven't liked, who I thought this person is interesting. They're compelling. They got a great message. They've had an interesting life, where you go, wow, 45 minutes isn't enough. Sometimes you go, wow, there's so much other stuff I didn't even get to. So having said that, Joe, just to wrap this one up though, because I do have another one in 7 minutes, is with a billionaire who, wow, anyway, this lady, she got on crack cocaine at one point and lost all her money, and then she regained it. So that can be an interesting story too today. But anyhow, all that said, let's go to a little advertising, by the way. Anyway, Joe, if people want to reach out to you, be it for your financial services, to be maybe even a guest on your show, we have a lot of athletes listen to the show, okay, that may say, hey, I'd be a great guest. Where can they find you?
Absolutely. Thanks again, John. This was very cool. I'd say probably email. My email is my first name, Joe dot, and then my last name, which I'll spell for you. And if you can pronounce it, good for you, like you could. Poduslenko. So joe.poduslenko at gmail.com is probably the best. And then you can find, the podcast, like I said, on YouTube, Spotify. I have an Instagram handle for it as well that I probably spend too much time on, but that's the postgame podcast on Instagram as well. So yeah, John, thanks again, man. It was great.
Thank you. It's been a privilege and a pleasure. And you know what? Of all those 250 plus shows, you are the first Seton Hall grad. So there you go. And there are a lot of us out there. So if you got some you want to send me, and vice versa, let's send them against some of the old Pirates on there.
Absolutely. Go Pirates. It's the first, but hopefully not the last. There you go.
Hopefully. Hey, listen, to the next governor of New Jersey, I think he was in my class, 83.
Okay. All right.
He's got to get elected. Who knows?
Yeah, there you go. Go Pirates. All right.
All right. Thanks, Joe.
All right, John.
Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to check back weekly for more exciting episodes. And don't miss Ink and Insight every Wednesday, where we celebrate iconic authors and dive into their impactful works.